Hi all, this is V, and this is Dover Castle and the White Cliffs of Dover in Dover, England. Dover Castle! This sprawling site was an Iron Age hill fort many centuries before the medieval castle was built. Situated on the English Channel, its strategic importance cannot be overstated. And I must admit, the history nerd in me went crazy at this place. I'll try to keep the history down to not a minimum, but I'll try not to overload you with history. But this place has it in spades. This craggly bit on the right is the Roman Lighthouse. It was probably built in the 2nd century AD and is among the most unusual surviving buildings from Roman Britain. To put it in perspective, a gentleman who works at the castle told me this was built at the time Jesus Christ was still alive. That blew my mind. This proves that even in Roman times, this was such a strategically important place. This is the Church of St. Mary in Castro, the largest and finest Saxon building in Kent. It was heavily restored in the 19th century, but outer walls and central tower arches are largely original. After the Norman conquest, the church was maintained to serve the castle community, and over the generations, it's been many things, and it's been restored several times. But in 1862, it was restored and re-roofed for use as the garrison church. From financial records, the Inner Bailey and the 14 rectangular mural towers can be dated from the 1180s. The Palace Gate is one of 2 ways into the castle that leads to the Inner Bailey. In the early 13th century, the structures in the Inner Bailey included a great hall, a series of royal chambers, and a chapel. In the late 13th century, these were redone to include a brewhouse, a bakehouse, and stables. In the 18th century, they were rebuilt as barracks. Arthur's Hall was the Great Hall, probably rebuilt in the early 13th century for Henry III. It currently houses an exhibition about Dover Castle, which was fascinating. The heart of Dover Castle is the Great Tower. This building is amazing. It was so fun to go up and down stairs and discover each room as you went. There are kitchens, there are bedrooms, a queen's bedroom, a king's bedroom, as you'll see. It was built by Henry II in the 1180s, originally built to be an occasional residence for the monarch and his guests. Its 4 stories are so commanding they can be seen from ships out in the English Channel. Over the years, the building has changed quite a bit. It's been renovated, it's had different uses, but recently, English Heritage decided to present the tower as it would have appeared in Henry II's day. That's why you see what the Queen's chamber would have looked like, what the King's chamber would have looked like. Also, in the Great Tower, there are people who work in the castle who can give you any and all information you would ever need about the castle. They are so knowledgeable and just incredible to talk to. We learn things like, are there ghosts at the castle? A lot of people think there are. Many of the same ghosts have been reported, but the gentleman that works there said, I don't believe in ghosts. I can't believe in ghosts because I work in an old castle. Pretty smart. He also told us to get the bugs, bed bugs, ticks, fleas, everything out of the furs that the monarchs would have worn. They hung the clothing over urine. The fumes from the urine would make the bugs fall out of the clothing, and you had a person who was actually the bug stamper to stomp on the bugs. Not a job I would like. Disgusting, but you gotta get the bugs out of your clothes. Honestly, his stories were fascinating. When you get to the king's and queen's bedrooms, you'll notice the beds are very short. It's not because they were short. Laying all the way down flat is a relatively modern change for humans. Back then, they sat up. They'd have pillows propping them upright to sleep. Honestly, the people working there are its best resource. Fantastic, full of information. I would love to take a guided tour. Honestly, the people that work there are a wealth of information, interesting tidbits to give you a real feel for what it would have been like to live back in those days. Not just the history, but the general people feel. What it would have been like to sleep upright and have your clothes debugged by urine. Yeah, it's different. Different times. I asked about the walls. They seemed to be painted. Well, the walls weren't painted, but they had stuff up with wall paintings on them. And he said that actually the walls would have been painted. Back in those days, tapestries were considered cheap. Paint was very expensive. So to have your walls painted, you were the highest of the high in society. I found that fascinating because in Tudor times, tapestries were quite popular. The King's Hall would have been a large room used for a variety of purposes, for ceremony and dining, a place of meeting, assembly. The gentleman working at the castle said that bedrooms at that time for kings and queens would have been quite bright. The furniture would have been brightly painted, the walls would have been painted, not quite the dark, super cozy castle feel, but very bright. The only part of the castle we didn't get to tour were the wartime tunnels. The only way to see the tunnels is through a guided tour, and the last one left too late for us. Built as barracks during the Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars with France, 1793 to 1815, they were also used during World War II and the Cold War. They have now been reconstructed to show what it looked like during World War II. Back behind the King's Hall, there was a chapel of Thomas Becket, meant only for the king. This Mappa Mundi, or map of the world, was created using medieval examples and authentic materials. This actually represents the world as it was believed to be in the Middle Ages. I found this one fascinating.
The original is in Cambridge, in Corpus Christi College, and this is a copy. It's calfskin vellum, using 12th century paints. And these
The gentleman at the castle said that generally these maps were used for religion over geography. It wasn't really a geographical map. Religion was the most important aspect. North is actually to the left because paradise was at the top, and paradise is where the sun came up.
You've got the Red Sea in red. Crossing of the waves, parting of the waves.
Oh yeah.
You've got the wandering in the wilderness. Just to the left of that, you've got Sodom and Gomorrah in flames. You've got Jerusalem below that.
Wow.
Over on the left there, you've got Noah's Ark stuck on its mountaintop. And this dates from 1180.
This area of the famous White Cliffs has been an Iron Age hill fort, a Roman settlement with a lighthouse, and now the ginormous castle that we see today. It is stunning, and if you get a chance, I highly recommend it. After the castle, we'll go visit the White Cliffs of Dover. The famous white chalk cliffs of Dover overlook the English Channel. The chalk layers, which have built up gradually over millions of years, is made from a soft, white, very finely grained, pure limestone. I had flown over them before, but I'd never been this close to them on the ground. Same with the English Channel. They are stunning, and they look so different in the rain or in the overcast, as you'll see, than they do in the sun. The sun came out when I was standing there, and wow, it was gorgeous. Hi all, it's V. And those, right there, are the White Cliffs of Dover. That's the English Channel. Over there, somewhere, is France. I've flown over here, but I've never actually seen the English Channel in person. It's a little bit windy, which is why I have a hat on. It's a little bit chilly. It's lovely. The sun just came out. Isn't that stunning? Thank you all so much for watching. Really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe.